Getting closure from a narcissistic person basically is not going to happen. Closure is something that many people need, and it's different from person to person what gives them that closure. When we have an open wound, to heal that wound, we have to close it up. And it's a process of things bonding back together. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the full process, but it's a process of the wound closing as it's healing. As it heals, it closes back up. Narcissistic people cause other people so much suffering and pain. They cause those internal injuries, those psychological injuries that we are not responsible for. However, as unjust as it might seem, we are responsible for healing those injuries, healing those wounds, and we are responsible for closing them. You cannot get closure from those who enjoy opening up your wounds. It's just not going to happen. We kind of need to close the door on that chapter of our life and walk into another chapter of our life. Yet we get used to patterns, we get used to routine, we get used to normality. So where one day we used to follow this sort of routine with that person in our lives, and then all of a sudden the next day, without any prior warning as such, they've gone and we don't know why or what for or what we did, that it sends us into despair. It's painful when you build a life with somebody and then they just suddenly up and leave you, and you've no real clue as to what you did wrong because they've spent the entire relationship gaslighting you and blaming you and shaming you, and then they're off with somebody new trying to provoke reactions from you, and they're seemingly living the best life ever, and the life that they once sold to you, they're now delivering to the new. It's painful, and it's normal to feel that pain. There is nothing wrong with feeling that pain. There's something wrong in their behaviour, their twisted behaviour. There's nothing wrong in feeling that pain because it means you can go through a process of healing, of closing, and of moving on. Narcissistic people don't do this. They stay trapped and they keep repeating the same pattern of behaviour, just with a new source of supply. When it comes to closure, what we often are looking for is a sense of understanding as to what we lived through and what we are now living. And it is that process to gain the knowledge, to gain the awareness, to gain the understanding, to learn about the suffering that we went through, and then accept the end. However, many of us end up reaching out for closure from the very person who keeps opening up our wounds. You're not going to get understanding from those who are not only committed to misunderstanding you, but are looking to get you to misunderstand them so that you do not know the truth about them. They don't want to give you honesty. They don't want to give you any respect. They don't want to give you loyalty. They want to take, they want to extract what they need from you. Or once they've got that, if you're no longer serving them, they move on to somebody new. However, as they are envious, no matter how much you give them, it is never going to be enough for them. It's who they are. They've been that way a long time. The more you help them, the more they will hurt you. They lack empathy to care about other people. They care about themselves. Some signs that you haven't moved on and you're looking for that closure is when you just cannot stop thinking about the past, or when you cannot stop thinking about them, when you cannot stop thinking about the future you'd planned with them. when you can't understand what on earth has just happened or what is happening, when you're questioning yourself, when you're questioning your self-worth, when you're questioning what's wrong with you, what could you have done better, what could you have said differently, what could you have done differently. And these questions are good. We just need to direct these questions into a manner that's going to serve us. We're sort of asking questions to give ourselves answers and understanding. We have to change those questions into things like, why would somebody treat us in that way? And it's because they lack the empathy to care, not because we did anything wrong. It's because of who they are. Narcissists program you to take the blame for everything and question yourself about everything, which we naturally do anyway. We naturally question ourselves and take responsibility for ourselves, unless you're a narcissist and they're too busy passing responsibility over. So when you haven't got that closure, you're busy questioning everything, ruminating about everything. And you have to start asking yourself the questions of, well, what was life actually like with that person? Painful, confusing, soul-destroying, rather than what could I have done to make them treat me better? It's who they are. When you're still hurting, you've not got the closure, you've not moved on. Grief is a natural process that we do unfortunately have to suffer through in order to close the wound. And even just like a scab, when it's closing up and when it's got so far, it can get really itchy. So even when we're going through it and we're closing the door on that chapter, there can be some things that we've not quite finalised in our thoughts. So it can come back like an irritating itch as we start to think about different aspects again. When we think we finally cracked it, got our closure and moved on, something comes along to knock us to 6, and then we're questioning ourselves again. This is normal. It's a process of healing that the majority of people do not want to go through because it's suffering and it's pain. So the majority of us don't want to go through it. We can almost reach back out to them because it's easier than going through the pain. It's easier to get in touch with them and ask them for the closure. They're not going to give us the answers we're looking for. We wouldn't be in that pain if they were willing to give us answers, if they were willing to be honest. And if you're at the point where you're trauma bonded so that you're looking to get back with them, even if they give you that, it's just going to prolong the suffering. It's just going to cause you more pain. And another sign that you haven't moved on is having that anger and that resentment and seeking revenge. Again, most perfectly normal emotional feelings when somebody has deceived you, when somebody has lied to you, when somebody has exploited you and then seemingly swanned off into the sunset to deliver the life you were planning with them, with somebody new. It's normal to feel those emotions. We have to process those emotions so that we can move on. We have to ask ourselves what that anger is telling us, what that resentment is telling us. Almost like jealousy. Narcissistic people feel envy and they seek to destroy. You can have that jealousy and they promise you something and they're delivering it to somebody new, and you want to seek revenge, you want to seek them to get their comeuppance. However, you usually just after justice is a thing called empathy that cuts you off from wanting to see somebody else suffer. However, you can start asking yourself, so what is it about that? Is it because they deceived me and lied to me, or is it because that is what I would like with somebody? However, I don't want it with them because they cause me pain. I want it with somebody who's genuine, who I can be myself around, who will be themselves around me. We might not want another relationship. We might want to channel our energy into something else. We all need something to strive for in life. Otherwise, there's no point in getting out of bed in the morning, which a lot of people can end up doing when they've been discarded by a narcissistic person, struggling to get out of bed because they don't believe they've got something to live for. We have to find something to live for, something to give us that meaning. So when it comes to closure, a narcissistic person is not going to give us that, just going to open up more wounds. We have to close those internal wounds ourselves, the psychological traumas ourselves. We can get outside help from people who are willing to help, and we can look at one idea that has worked for someone, because it's a different journey for all of us. We can look at one idea and think, no, that's not going to work for me. Or how on earth can you say that? How on earth can you do that? After everything you've been through, how can you... We can become judgmental and start targeting people. And we have to recognise that that's their healing journey. It worked for them. Will it work for me? No. So we have to find what does work for us and respect what works for other people. Find that understanding. Find that closure. Sometimes we have to look at the bigger picture of the suffering we had with that person. The fact that they didn't help us through the daily struggles, they caused our daily struggles. They didn't help us through the pain, they caused our pain. They didn't help us through the suffering, they caused our suffering. They didn't help us through conflict, they caused and they brought the conflict, the drama and the chaos to the table for us to clean up after them. You have to look at the bigger picture, not the rose-tinted glasses one that they sold you. Then we have to find the meaning. The meaning is different from person to person. So one person's meaning might offend another person. It's not meant to. It's just their meaning of that relationship is different to somebody else's. So it might offend another person. You have to find your own individual meaning that helps you process and move on. You have to find your value. You have to find your new value. You have to discover your values and your beliefs. Create your boundaries so other people can't take advantage of your nature again. So you can still be you. People just can't take advantage of you. Figure out the things that you enjoy. Find a new purpose, a new sense of importance so that you can move on. Narcissistic people don't move on because they don't want to deal with any of this. They just move on to pass their trauma onto a new supply. And as they don't want to fix their own internal issues, they pass them on to the new supply and then move on to another supply, often coming back if they see you overcoming it and moving on with your life and getting on with your life because they're envious that you are able to do that and they're not. So they're seeking to bring you back down so they can feel better about themselves. If anyone has any thoughts on this video, please do add those into the comments. Thank you very much to all the returning subscribers and your continued support with this channel. It's greatly appreciated. If you are new to the channel, I'm Elizabeth Shaw. This channel is all about narcissistic behaviour to give you more understanding of the people you might be dealing with within your life, how to handle yourself around those people if you cannot come in contact, and different methods to find what works for you to help you understand and overcome narcissistic and emotional abuse. If you do find the information helpful on the channel, please do subscribe. If you are looking for further help and support in understanding and overcoming narcissistic and emotional abuse, I do have several online guides available and those teachable links are in the video description. If you're looking for someone to speak to, I have partnered with BetterHelp and their sponsored link is also in the video description. Go out there and create the day that you deserve because you do deserve to have an amazing day. Bye.